Well, we heard from Brewer general manager Matt Arnold. Did he give us a whole lot? No, but that's to be expected. We'll talk about some of the things he said and some other midweek rumblings on this edition of Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everybody. Good to have you along as we separate ourselves from the disappointment that was the Brewers season. Yes, disappointment. Yeah, they provided us with a lot of fun and excitement during the season. Well, not always excitement, but they still won 92 games, but a thud to end the season. But we'll get to Matt Arnold's comments coming up here in a little bit. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, brought to you by Jase Medical. Today's episode by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. We're going to talk about his comments, Matt Arnold's, a few other things with Craig Counsell. He's still here. Postseason awards, the Brewers dealt those out. Corbin Burns, all that coming up here on Locked On Brewers. First of all, we can get to the comments. I'm Chuck Freeman, longtime sportscaster in Wisconsin. First-year host of Locked On Brewers. Hope to be a longtime host of Locked On Brewers. Google, Spotify, Apple. You see us on all the downloads. Anywhere you download your podcasts, you get Locked On Brewers. Please subscribe. And of course, our growing YouTube audience, Locked On Brewers. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell. Somebody asked me, why do I always repeat that, where to find us? Because what if somebody just stumbles on and finds our podcast? You might be on YouTube and think, oh, how do I find the audio of this? There must be an audio version. Oh, yeah. Download. Or somebody might be listening to audio. Oh, how can I get the video? Well, just go to YouTube. That's how it works. You never know. Just like what a radio station. They say their call letters 1,000 times every hour. Well, identity. That's what it's all about in the broadcast business. All right. So follow me along on Twitter as well. Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. Thank you, everybody out there, for joining us here on Locked On Brewers. And that is my Twitter account. If you're just watching us YouTube, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. Again, our YouTube account, our various downloads on the platforms. We are the #1 Brewer podcast on the internet for a reason, because you group great Brewer fans out there. Yeah, Matt Arnold, and I don't expect these guys, when they have their season-ending press conference, they're not going to tell us everything about their team. They're very bland answers. Not like they're dodging anything. But to be honest, there was no hard-hitting questions. Nobody really put the fist to Matt Arnold, said this. Why did your season end so poorly? Why? Somebody did ask about Jesse Winker. But Jesse Winker's the least of my... Jesse Winker, batting in those postseason games, just kind of rubbed salt in the wounds. I was talking on Bart Winkler, on his podcast. And he made a funny point. He said, yeah, the reason why Winker batted the second night is, well, for those of you who missed game one, here he is again. Only this time he bounced out to first base. But yeah, still don't understand that move. I do feel like Counsell he gets to the postseason and somehow does some bizarre things like that. You would have never saw that in the regular season. Didn't play him all. And Arnold was asked about why Winker? Well, we saw some things down at AAA, and I know not everybody gets a chance to see him down at AAA, but we saw some things. I know if a guy hasn't batted since July, I'm really reluctant to put him up in 8th inning with my season on the line. That is, and that didn't cost them, but it was still an out. It was 2 outs right there that he made. He was asked about Craig Counsell, says no timetable. Now, normally, you think if the Mets really wanted Counsell, he would have been the manager on Monday already. All right, season ended Thursday, give it a couple of days. Or season ended Wednesday, give it a couple of days. Like in college basketball, college football. team's bowl season ends. Team loses in the NCAA tournament. Florida International, for instance, let's say Florida International, Florida Atlantic or whatever, loses in the NCAA tournament on Thursday. By Friday, he's wearing a USC hat or a Washington hat or a Cal hat or wherever. He's long forgotten his first round NCAA tournament loss. But maybe there's got to be some logistics to get worked out here. But there's been contact between the both sides. Are you telling me that Stearns' side didn't have contact with Counsell's side somehow? Would there be any interest in you becoming the next manager of the New York Mets? So, and again, October 31st, Counsell's under contract to October 31st. But I would have had to think that something would have been worked out by now as far as compensation. I don't know. It's been a few days. If Counsell was really going to take the Mets job, don't you think the Mets would have made a splash right now and said, this is our guy? This is our guy. What would take them so long? If that's their number one candidate, they don't need to interview him. Stearns doesn't need to interview him at all. If that's your guy, that's your guy. Right? Don't you think he would have been manager? The Brewers and Mets would have worked out a compensation on that already. So I don't know. Maybe he is coming back. I know some of you feel strongly that he shouldn't come back, and some of you feel like maybe a change is in order for the Brewers, just something new. Now, Arnold said there's no timetable, and Craig is the manager for the foreseeable future as long as he's concerned. But, they'd like to get this thing done as soon as possible. But he has said, I hope he's here for a long time. Now, read what you want into those comments. He's here for a long time. Who knows? Arizona having some success here in the postseason. And you've seen the graphic since 2008 when the Brewers started going to the postseason again. Well, when they finally broke the door down for the first time since 1982 was 2008. Every team that they've lost to has gone on. Every team they've lost to in the postseason has gone on to the World Series. And maybe Arizona is that team as well. They catch those teams when they're getting hot. All these teams, they catch the eventual team that's going to go on and win the World Series or get to the World Series. If you look at the history, yeah, it has happened. And maybe Arizona, they've taken 2-0 from Los Angeles so far. And yeah, you're thinking, well, okay, they came in and they beat the Brewers, but maybe Arizona is just a better team, getting hot at the right time, getting everything. That's part of it. Postseason, getting your house in order at the right time, and that's maybe Arizona. Are the Diamondbacks better than the Brewers? I thought the Brewers are better. Okay. Maybe the Brewers are a better regular season team, and the Diamondbacks, when it came time for clutch time, the Diamondbacks came through in the clutch, trailing twice against the Brewers. The Diamondbacks came through. But yeah, I'm looking at these games, and I'm seeing Arizona getting off to a fast start against the Dodgers. And I'm thinking to myself, would that be us? Well, first of all, yeah, the Brewers are good at getting off at fast starts, but we saw in both of these postseason games, they're also good at blowing leads early on. So Arnold was asked about that. He said, yeah, he did notice that. But he said across the board, they got to get better. They do got to get better across the board. He says they're going to look at everything in the organization. He said the coaches are coming back for the most part. He said we got to figure out this situation with Counsell first, in so many words, and then we'll worry about the coaches. But he says, I imagine all the coaches are going to come back. Now, maybe Craig's got some answers, but you think they would know that by now, and there'd be a switch, because you see teams that have dropped out or didn't even make the postseason, like the Red Sox fired their pitching coach, Dave Bush, all over. You would think that, the Brewers would have made a decision instead of letting their current staff float in the wind. So it sounds like right now, all the current coaches are coming back. I know some of you wanted changes in hitting coaches, but I look at that more of as a personnel move, and I don't look at it. It's like the pitching coach, Johnson, pitching coach of the Brewers. You all were worried when he went to Cincinnati, and look at Cincinnati. Look how bad their starting staff is. Look how bad it was this year. Okay. The pitching coach takes the blame, but the GM should take blame for the groceries you're giving to that pitching coach or team to work with. So they just need to add better players, the Brewers do. We can't get by on just journeyman players anymore. Got to get better players. We'll talk more about that coming up here in a little bit. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here on a Tuesday, midweek, and we have no Brewer baseball to talk about except for off-season stuff. I thought for sure we'd be talking about a Brewers team. I really thought they'd get by Arizona. We talked about a Brewers team that's coming back here 1-1 with the Dodgers, ready for Game 3 on Wednesday night. Little did I know, well, I should know better, being a Wisconsin sports fan. This show brought to you in part by Jase. Jase, I was telling you a little bit about the open about Jase. Jase, everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use, gives you peace of mind. So when you're not just hoping to access medicine in an emergency, Jase Medical can make sure you have that medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluations to licensed pharmacy medication delivery to ongoing consultation and care. Don't ever get caught unprepared. Jase Medical will be there for you. Get $20 off life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using the promo code Locked On at checkout. Jase Medical, that's JASE medical.com. Again, $20 off those life-saving antibiotics by using the promo code Locked On. Locked On Brewers, Chuck Freeman, your guy here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, all your everydayers, for joining us as always on our various platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, on YouTube for downloading and loading us, and follow me along on Twitter. I love hearing your comments. Some of you guys know, and I can tell, you're still passionate about this team. You're disappointed. You're downtrodden at the season ended, like me. I am. Yeah, we should be playing a game at AmFam Field on Wednesday night against the Dodgers. You know, that game would have been in prime time. Should have been a Wednesday night game we're talking about. But this early exit, it's almost in a couple days. It'll be a week. Actually, you know what? It is a week on Wednesday. It's a week on Wednesday. That went fast. And just going into the Arizona clubhouse after the game. I work for AP Radio as well. So going into the clubhouse after the game and hearing that Lovallo post-game speech he made to his team. And I'm not saying dropping F-bombs is the way to go. I'm not condoning it. He uses it for emphasis. Like Bobby Knight would say, used it for emphasis. But he got his point across, and that was a team on a mission, that Arizona team. So going out to Los Angeles and winning those 2 games like Arizona has doesn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me if they won the World Series as well. Are they a great team? No. They're just coming together at the right time. And the Brewers, unfortunately, ran into their way. That was the team I told you going in the previous weekend. I said, I don't want to face Arizona. In the month of September, I said, I don't want to face the Phillies, and Arizona would be my second choice. I'm okay facing the Cubs, facing Cincinnati, facing Miami. But that Arizona team scares me. And they had come into AmFam Field having lost 4 in a row. They turned it around quickly and are on a roll against the Milwaukee Brewers. So maybe that's the thing, is you head into the postseason losing a few games and you get hot in the postseason, which they did. Although that could have carried over into the postseason as well, but it didn't. All right, we'll come right back and talk more about this early exit. Burns, Hira, some postseason awards, all that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host. Good to have you along here. I got a name, and some of you guys are going to groan when I say this name. If Craig Counsell leaves, what would you think of Joe Maddon being the next manager? Now, I think Joe probably wants to go. Well, there's rumblings that he was interested in the New York Mets job. Now, whether Stearns is interested, okay. But Joe Maddon was the hot ticket 10 years ago. Obviously, he won the World Series in 2016. And, he left, and he probably could have had his pick of any managerial job out there, went to the Angels again. It didn't work out for him. Now, he's up there in age, but I don't use age at all as far as determining who my manager is or is not. That doesn't bother me. But the fire still burns with that guy. You could tell. Saw an interview with him. The fire still burns. Once you kind of think about if you had a managerial opening, thinking about Joe Maddon, now he'd have to have interest in the Brewers job. Maybe he might. I think he still's got a little axe to grind there from days gone by, how it ended with the Cubs, certainly how it ended with the Angels. I think he wants another shot at it. Or does he have to have a team that's already built for the postseason? The Brewers, they say they're built for the postseason. They're just not built, obviously, for a championship at this point. But that could happen in the offseason, and that could happen here the next couple of years. Like I said, don't settle for anything less than a deep postseason run with the Milwaukee Brewers. But I saw that Madden was interested. The reports were that Madden was interested in the Mets job. And I was just like, man, I wouldn't mind having Madden here. Kevin Seitzer, the Braves hitting coach, another guy I'd be interested in. Now, the Braves are faltering. Well, they ended up coming back and beating the Phillies last night after getting down early. But I still think the Phillies are going to win that series. But Kevin Seitzer, would that be a guy you'd be interested if Counsell leaves? Counsell and Seitzer and Madden would be my two choices. Yeah, I'd kick the tires on Madison. I know some of you guys aren't going to like that. I know. I get it. 10 years ago, you would have loved it. Somehow people soured on Joe Madden all of a sudden because it ended poorly with the Cubs, although he won a World Series there. And, I mean, a player's coach, player's manager, I think. I really do. You know, guy doesn't settle for mediocrity. I like those, you go into the Cubs clubhouse, you see those shirts, just don't suck today or whatever. Or be better today than it was yesterday. All those little expressions. And I get that where I get under his team's skin once in a while. All those little phrases and all that. But I don't know. I'd kick the tires on Joe Madden. There's no doubt about it. Today, 41 years ago today, the Brewers won the American League pennant. 41 years ago. Who would have guessed 41 years later, the Brewers still would not have made it back to the World Series. 41 years ago. I was there covering that game. I was 15 years old. And they won the American League pennant. 15, my second year covering the team. And that's a different story. That'll be in the Freeman book or a different podcast. But I thought, as people were rushing on the field, man, I could get used to this. This is great. Championship level baseball. Brewers, how about that? Their 12th year in existence, because they came in 1970. Well, it's 1969. They were with Seattle, the Seattle Pilots. Go to the Sealing Experience at AmFam Field. You'll see the whole story. And I thought, okay, this will be fun, right? And who would have guessed? Another 26 years before they went to the postseason, and still 41 years later, and they haven't made it back to the World Series. And a World Series they should have beat when they should have beat the Cardinals in '82, 5 Hall of Famers. But don't get me started on that. I saw, 41 years ago, who wouldn't have guessed? When I was a 15-year-old kid, we'd be thinking that the Brewers still have not been back to the World Series. I still remember the Goodyear blimp flying over my house after the World Series on its way down to St. Louis for Game 6 on a Sunday night. The Brewers played Game 5 of the World Series. And later on that night, the blimp flying over our house, everybody got out of their house and saw the blimp. Wow. Just flying over our house over in Greendale in the suburbs there. Just was kind of cool. I saw there was a story, and I haven't read it yet. ESPN.com has put out a story on Ryan Brown's PEDs and about that whole thing. Can we just move on? Why do we got to talk about that? I had no interest in reading the story about his whole thing with biogenesis and all that. I'm not interested in that. We've moved on. Okay. So this is what they're going to talk about. The national media is going to talk about Ryan Braun 12 years later about his PED case. I don't even want to hear about it. I don't even want to read it. I saw it. It came up on my feed today. I'm like, come on, really? I thought it was something from, 10 years ago. What? Written in 2013 or 2023. This should have been like 2013. I would have read it, but 2023, I've definitely moved on. All right, the Brewers postseason awards. We'll get to that coming up next. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along. All you everydayers following us along on Spotify, Google. We're on all your major downloads every day. And the show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. October baseball is back, and you can make your postseason debut with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Join FanDuel today. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first live $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to create your new account. Then you get in all the action from the first pitch to the final out. Bet on everything from strikeouts to home runs to who will win the game. And if you don't want to wait for the home game to get the W, predict what's going to happen at the next at-bat with quick bets on the at-bats. So head to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. Step to the plate this postseason. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. We'll come back, talk about these Brewers postseason awards, a couple of your tweets, and finish up on Matt Arnold's press conference today. That's next here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host. I'm going to take a quick drink here. Quick drink of lemonade. No vodka, just lemonade. Here on a afternoon. Great to have you along. Matt Arnold, other than that, didn't have a lot to say. Says we're going to look at all areas of our franchise to get better. I told you about that across the board, he said. No timetable for Counsell. Brandon Woodruff says he's going to get another opinion on the shoulder this week. All I know is the opinion was the shoulder was sore, and that is a problem with Woodruff. When we find some news, we'll pass it along on Woodruff. But, yeah, that is a problem for the Milwaukee Brewers. He also talked about Burns. He expects Burns to be a Brewer next year, but he put the caveat in there. Can't really close down conversations at all. So, in other words, the door is going to be left open. He'd be a fool to come out and say, well, Burns is going to be a lifetime member of the Milwaukee Brewers. No, he's going to come out there and give you the politically correct answer. Yes, I expect him to be a member. No, if something came along, of course we got to think about it. You think about anybody. You think of Yelich, you think Frelick, anybody. To me, everything's on the table with the Milwaukee Brewers. If my team can get better, everything is on the table with the Milwaukee Brewers. Not holding anything back. Not at all. All right, the Shohei news going to the Reds. I'm tired of hearing the Shohei. You know why I'm tired of hearing the Shohei news? Because the Brewers can't, because the way baseball is constructed, the Brewers can't be involved in any talks of getting Shohei a Milwaukee Brewer because obviously they can't afford him. But, if this is any other sport, the Brewers could get involved in something like that. But, because there's no financial cap at all, the Brewers, all the big markets, and the Red Sox are hiring a Japanese translator, it sounds like, according to reports. That's great. Red Sox, big markets. This is always going to be the case in baseball. And yes, it really bothers me that this is the case. If you haven't found out by listening to these podcasts already. All right, the postseason awards, the Baseball Writers Association, the Milwaukee chapter, the guys at the Journal, Adam McCalvey, guys who cover the team, writers on a regular basis, they voted for the local award, and Contreras wins offensive MVP, and we knew that was going to happen. No surprise there. Who else? He was the most consistent, best hitter on the team. Will Contreras. Who had that? Who picked that one when the season started? Well, who's going to be my offensive MVP on the 2023 team? It's going to be Will Contreras. People would have looked at you like you had two heads. Will Contreras. Yes. And no disrespect to Will Contreras, but that's how sad offensively this is. Christian Yelich won the Good Guy Award. The Good Guy Award, that means a guy you deal with at the media, always there, win or lose. Okay, that's great. But Christian Yelich winning the Good Guy Award, we're not paying him $200 million to win the Good Guy Award. We're paying him to win offensive MVP. So, yeah, Yelich winning the Good Guy Award, that's a little embarrassing because Contreras should win the Good Guy Award, and Yelich, with his ability and the talent and the MVP talent that we thought he had, should be the MVP. MVP pitcher, Burns. Unsung Hero Award, well, no question, Burns, most valuable pitcher. Unsung Hero Award, it went to Bryce Wilson. I thought it should have been Monasterio. It went to Bryce Wilson. Now, all these awards, who cares? The only award I care about is the World Series trophy, and that's not coming to Milwaukee. Either is the American League Championship or the National League Championship. We already got an American League Championship trophy that's growing weeds on it right now because it's so ancient in 1982. The National League Championship trophy. It made an appearance in 1982, but it left with the Dodgers in 2011. It left with the Cardinals. 2018, it left with the Dodgers. So those were the postseason awards that nobody cares about that was handed out. All right, a couple of quick tweets here before we send you on your way. Some of you guys tweeting at me. Matthew Zimmerman, thank you for giving us a platform for me and our fan base who loves our Brewers and sports teams. It helps me feel better. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. Hey, you know what? Guys like you, Matthew Zimmerman, and the rest of you on follow me along on Twitter, you're the reason, well, major reason why I love doing this, because you get great feedback like that and following us along. And you're the reason why this is such a successful podcast. I put out on Twitter, well, we heard a whole lot of nothing from Matt Arnold. Andrew says, I kind of disagree. Sounded like, don't be surprised if Burns stays. There's optimism. Counsell will be back, and they will make additions. Tyler Black from within. Also, maybe just GM speak. Yeah, all this is GM speak. You can't read in anything he said. Counsell, who knows? Burns, don't be surprised if Burns stays. Of course, don't be surprised if he stays, but he's not going to tell if he's going to trade him or not. He's not going to say, well, we're going to trade Corbin Burns this offseason. There goes his trade value. Of course, he's going to want to act like he's going to keep the guy. Mark Antanasio holds the entire key to the kingdom. Whatever Matt Arnold says, it's all because Mark Antanasio holds all the keys to all this. How much money is he going to spend in the offseason? That's what we haven't heard yet. Is he cutting payroll? Is he increasing payroll? That's the most important. I didn't want to see Matt Arnold up there. I want to see Mark Antanasio. Is he spending any money in this offseason? That's what we all want to hear. We need to hear from him this offseason. It's going to do it for me, Chuck Freeman. Later on in the week, Vinny Rattino is going to be joining us. Terrific analyst on the Brewers on Bally Sports. We'll talk to him. It'll be his first time on the show, but I did not want to bother him during the regular season. Those guys are busy working 162, but we're going to get him now here in the offseason. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Talk to you later, everybody.